So I have taking all the classes that you needed in order to get to where you wanted to go. I think that's one thing. It's hard because, you go as Black women, you go to you work in these, I don't want to say white environments, but these environments, right? Mm-hmm. And they're not, you may be the only Black girl or, one of the few, right? And they said, oh my gosh, you do so well. And they give all of these responsibilities to you, like, oh God, yeah, do this, you do this so well, you can do this, you can do this. And then it's like, well, hold up.
Right.
How are you going to advance me? Like, I'm doing a lot now, right? So I think that I like how, he told you no, but you can tell yourself no, right? Especially Morgan, you're like Jill. Jill came from education. I can't say what I want to say because let me just say, when I said that I was hiring a teacher, it was like, what does she know? And I'm like, listen, I know what I'm doing. But the fact that I have to tell somebody that I know what I'm doing makes me feel unvalued, like,
right.
Why do I have to tell you that? I have the credentials that, if not more than everybody else has, And so I wanted to see, like, how has that experience been for you in the workplace? Do you feel like you always have to prove yourself? Or not even, you don't feel like it, but it's like people are always questioning what you have or how you got there.
Mm-hmm. That's something that I personally run into a lot. Seeing that I'm younger in the field, haven't hit 30 yet. So it's, people like to question you. There's not a lot of us out there. They question your judgment. They question whether this decision you're making is right. So I'm on the other side of tech. I'm on more the product management side of tech. So they question a lot of that. And sometimes you just have to stay 10 toes down and be firm in your decision. And if they like it, if they don't, you're true to yourself. And I've had, managers who done the complete opposite of what I felt was the right decision or the right approach on a project, and it backfired. And at that point, you just sit there like,
I said, I told you so.
I told you so. So yeah, it's hard. People are always going to second guess you. They're always going to doubt you. You just have to stay firm in your beliefs and be confident in yourself and your decisions.
Absolutely.
I think that the point about age is kind of a big deal as well, because I know when I was younger, and I'm well over 40, I'm actually approaching 50 now. When I was younger, I got a lot more of that. But I think now at this point in my career with, 20 plus years behind me, and I can rattle off the credentials, and I know where some of the bodies are buried and all of that kind of stuff. It's not as much that people question me, but then there's the age aspect, and then there's the the fact that we're women, right? Mm-hmm. And so sexism is a thing as well, right? And so you have people that just will kind of gloss over your ideas or kind of take them as their own, just because they feel like, oh, the little woman over there, whatever, right? And so you just got to kind of own it, right? And so there's a little bit of assertiveness that has to come in with that. But all of those things, the intersectionality of all of who we are comes into play there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you made mention that a lot of times that you are the only woman in your environment, or probably the only African-American woman in your environment. So do you have, like, let me see how I can word this. In these spaces where you may be the only African-American woman, are there any microaggressions or, subtle hints of sexism that you have to deal with that you don't want? Like, I know you kind of made mention of it, but if you don't mind kind of going more in depth in that, like, what are some things you face on a daily basis as sometimes the only African-American face in the room, woman at that?
Yeah, I'll just say that it's something that you're always aware of. Like, mm-hmm. This has been my life for the last 25 years, and I'm still keenly aware of it when I'm in a room and I'm the only one. But, you know, I guess one of the things that often comes up nowadays when we're on all these Zoom meetings, etc., it's hard to get a word in edgewise, right? People will talk over you. Like you unmute your mic and you start talking and somebody just starts talking over you. You know, and I find myself, and I'm not a rude person, but I have to be like, excuse me.
I'm speaking.
I'm speaking. Or let me finish my thought. You know, that type of thing, where, you know, and I have, you know, pre-COVID, I had that same experience just being in the room with people where you're trying to, you know, assert your own, you know, ideas and make sure that you're being heard. And that to me is probably the biggest microaggression that I run across.
And I feel like it's really hard, especially, you know, in my position. A lot of the success of the team is kind of based on how your product owners are going to, you know, drive and prioritize and lead your teams. But it's a trust thing that you have to build. And it's really hard coming into new teams as the only Black person, the only woman, and getting these men to instill some type of trust in you. And that's really the hardest. But I feel like once we break that barrier and kind of get them on board, milk it.
Right. Absolutely. I think, you know, for our experience being in our side, we're at an HBCU, right? So, you know, it's kind of like, I think it comes from the outside more. When we talk to vendors and, you know, they say, oh, well, who's the person who's over IT? Or who's, you know, and they're like, well, what are we talking about, right? Like, what concept are we talking about? And they're like, oh, we're talking about putting technology in the classroom. It's like, it's us. They're like, no, I need to talk to the person over IT. It's us. So it's like, you know, what do you want to talk about? Then they start talking to us, and then they realize, like, we have the nitty gritty conversations too. We can talk tech too. I think that's one thing, like, a lot of times when I'm working with IT, I'm like, no, this is like this is like this. And they're like, oh, okay, Dr. B, like, you gave a lot of help, or you gave a lot of contributions. We appreciate it. And I'm like,
well, I'm not supposed to.
Right.
Why are you surprised?
Why are you surprised? Like, what is that? Or I go to conferences sometimes and they're like, and so one thing I was told when I worked in Texas was ageism does not apply for anybody under the age of 40, right? But they would say, you look like a kid. I hear what you're saying, but you look so young. And that goes to the trust thing that kind of what Morgan was talking about. Like, look, do you ask your kids to fix your iPhone? I might be a kid, but still, like, you know, trust me when I'm saying this. And so I can definitely understand where you're coming from. A lot of times I go to conferences and they're like, oh, you're like a student. I thought they had, you know, students here with them. And I'm like, nah, I work there. So I can definitely understand that.
So when you have to assert yourself in your position, you know, you may hear that the angry Black woman, or, you know, why are you so aggressive? Like, especially when you're like, hey, you know, I'm speaking right now. No one took your turn. You know, everybody listened and engaged when it was your turn to speak. How do you deal with that? Like, what is that like for you? Or is it a thing for you?
I am the angry Black woman.
I'm angry all the art of anger, though.
So here's the thing. So part of this is a little cultural. I am a New York transplant in North Carolina, which in and of itself, like, me being my natural self is aggressive for down here, right? So just add my skin color on top of it. Add the fact, I mean, I used to have long locks, you know, just my whole presence was like, oh my God, she's gonna break out in, you know, a Black Power salute or something in any moment. But, you know, I had to learn that that's a personal problem for them, right? I'm being myself. I'm not being aggressive. I'm not calling anybody out their name. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. If you are taking it some other kind of way, you and God need to go work on that. And that's something that I had to come to kind of a little later in my life. I was a little bit more sensitive to it when I was younger, but at this point in my life, yeah, you do you. I'm good.
That's good.
I wish I could have your confidence with that. That is something that I struggle with. Being younger and kind of new to corporate America, you're trying to figure your way and deal your way out through things. You don't want to be the angry Black person in the room. And while you're the only Black person in the room, you don't want your actions or your words to influence the hiring process of another Black person coming in to after you. So that is something that I've always kind of struggled work-wise and career-wise, is when do I hold my tongue and when do I let them have it? Mm-hmm. I'm starting to get to the point in my career where I was like, hey, I'm right. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, like you said, take it to the altar. Take it to the altar. And it's taken me a few years to get to that and get that confidence. But, you know, I'm now at the point where you really can't tell me about how to do my job. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like I said, take it to the altar. I have something to say. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it as tactfully as possible. How you take it is your fault.
Right. Yeah, I think that you brought up one point where you're the only person in the room. You don't want to affect somebody else being hired that's Black as well. But it's like, who made me the spokesperson for all Black people, right? And I think so of course in this space we don't get that as much, but I always like, you know, I've worked in corporate before, and we would have an event and they'd be like, well, this is before I was Dr. B. Alesheia, how do you feel? Like, I don't, like, what do you mean? What are you asking? And they're like, you know, how would people like you feel? People like me, what, that are 31? Right? Like, you know, what is the question that you're trying to ask? Say it out loud so I can get it on tape and go to HR and get paid. But I can definitely understand that. I know that you had mentioned, Tramaine, about how you said, especially in the Zoom space, right? Basically, the Zoom pandemic, during the pandemic, you've been having to do like conversations, right, on Zoom, and you have to overspeak or what have you. So how have things changed for you in your environment being virtual for the most part? I know both of you said that you haven't gone into the office. So how have things been like since being there with that?
Yeah, so I guess on the positive side, it's a little bit more of an equalizer because, you know, some of those hallway conversations that you may have been excluded from are not happening. And so, you know, it's a little bit more, you know, people back channel a little bit differently than they used to nowadays. So, you know, I can get in on some of those back channels a little bit more in terms of getting in the rooms where some of these conversations are happening, rather than, you know, seeing, you know, Fred and John going off in the corner and doing their own thing, right? You know, so that I think is a positive. A negative is just exhausting. And I think that's just for everybody. You know, you got to be on all the time is what it feels like. And that's not a function of being Black or being a woman or anything. That's just a product of the times right now. It's just, you know, that added layer on top of everything else you already deal with. It just, it becomes a little wearing, but we're adjusting.
Absolutely. Yeah, Zoom has been a very, very big adjustment. Just you're having to over communicate now that we're all virtual. And you know, if you're over communicating in the office, might be a little annoying, but like now you have to, because when the ball drops, it's on you. So Zoom, it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite. I love the in-person interactions. I love the face-to-face interactions in the office, and I do honestly miss them. but you have to get with the times. We have to, and that's what we're doing now. So we have to adjust.
I have a question. Kind of going back to something Tramaine said earlier. She said she got into her field because somebody told her that she couldn't, or somebody implied that, this was not for her. So I'm sure that this has happened not only to you, Tramaine, but also you, Morgan. Can you speak on that and how it, motivated you to push forward? Because we want to inspire those students or those, anybody who's watching this, that just because they tell you no, or just because they say you're not, meant for this, that's not your stopping point. That's not your go ahead. They don't give you the go ahead.
Personally, that's how I'm motivated. I've been told I could not do something. I've been told I was not going to college. I have 2 degrees now. girl. I was told, okay, if you get there, you're not going to make it to the end. Made it to the end and some. So I personally get drive at proving people wrong. And I think that's what has motivated me, and not wanting to be a disappointment in my family and myself and in my community. So it just gives me more drive. If you tell me I can't do something, okay, watch. I'm going to do it and some.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing for me. It's just, what made you look at me and think I couldn't, right? Like, and what made you then come out your face to say that I couldn't? Right. Like the unmitigated gall of you. Watch this. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's just I get angry enough to kind of fuel what I have to do to get going. And I think it's that tension and that discomfort that kind of drives me a little bit. When I get comfortable, I'm just sitting on the couch watching Netflix. No, but if something's making me angry and it's driving me, yeah, I'm gonna get that done.
I can definitely relate to that though. For myself, I actually have an undergrad in English, and people are like, so how do you work in tech? So I went in the Army, and I actually did technology in the Army. And I thought I wanted to be an officer, and I had somebody who was in my unit tell me, you're not going to be an officer. Like, look at you. Like, you're right, because I hate PT, so I'm just going to go ahead and get out. PT is physical training, so I was like, you're right. I'm going to go ahead and get out, but I'm going to use all the credentials that I got here, and I'm going to use them in the civilian world. And I'm going to use this clearance that I got here, and I'm going to use it in the civilian world. So I worked really hard, and I was actually working at a company, and I was sitting there, and I was like, who designed this training? This stuff sucks. And, at that point in time, I was a single mom, and I was working at call centers, but I was like, there's no beef to nobody who works at call centers. It's just that I knew it wasn't for me. I knew I wanted more, but I was just, people had told me like, you're not going, what you gonna do now? You got a kid, right? And I'm like, I'm a raiser, right? But I knew I wanted more. So I got my master's, and then for some reason, I could not stop. I was just like, I'll just keep going to get my doctorate, right? And I did that. But when I was at my old job, my boss told me, I'm not going to call you Dr. B. I'm not going to call you a doctor. And I was like, if I got married on Friday and came in on Monday, you would call me Mrs. So what's the difference, right? But I knew like I needed to get out of that space. So I applied for this position. And I thought I was crazy when I applied for it, because I was like, who is going to hire me with my background that I've had? It shows I have technology training from the Army. I know my stuff. I can do my HTML, all these different things. But it was just the opportunity to have the shot, right? And to be able to prove other people wrong. Like, after I had my daughter, after I got out the Army, after I left, the call center, because people will tell you all these things like, you can't get out of the call center. Nobody get out the call center. You can't do it now. You got a kid. You need to raise your kid. You can't get no master's. You can't get no doctorate. You can't do this. And it's just like you said, that intestinal fortitude, number one, but also those voices play in your head again, right? And it's like, I hate to be like colloquial or whatever, but it's like, I think I can. I can do this. I got this, right? And then it happens. And you're like,
Right.
Literally.
Right. Right.
Yes.
It's just that one opportunity, that
One.
one opportunity. Because
That's the one opportunity.
I've worked with people and I've had people hire me on that do not have a technical degree at all. And I'm sitting here like, okay, let me figure out how they got here so I can help the next person to not accrue as many student loan debts that I have to get here.
Listen.
Because they got a certification instead of a whole degree.
Okay.
What they're doing, so I can help the next person.
Right.
Absolutely. And like you said, it just takes the opportunity. Coming from a background in education, they think if you were a teacher, you can't do anything but teach. You're not going to be able to do anything but teach. And that is all. And nothing. Teachers can do anything is what, they can do anything. And I think one thing I want to get out there, not only, you just need the opportunity, but if people want you in this space and you show that you are a hard worker and that you are coachable and that you are teachable, they will train you to be in these spaces. And then once you are in them, it is up to you to pursue and get what you need to be successful in your space. But all it takes is an opportunity. For the day. All it takes is the opportunity. But once you're there, it is your responsibility to make sure that you are showing up in that space and getting what you need, those certifications, those trainings, those courses, and just going to get it, make it happen. Mm-hmm. So I know we told you all a time frame. So can we just ask you this? Mm-hmm. If you had anything to tell our students, our listeners who are thinking about a degree or thinking about leaving a degree, getting a career in tech, or thinking about switching careers and moving into the tech world, what would you tell them?
Do it. I mean, we need you. Please come help us. I guess I would just say, be curious about the different aspects of careers. It's not just one thing where, your head's down coding. I mean, you've got program managers and project managers and, all this broad breadth of technical positions. You can find your niche in there somewhere. Mm-hmm. So just be curious about what's available, talk to people, make sure you grow your network. Every job I've ever gotten, it's because I've known somebody. And so, that's very, very important. And just, make sure that you keep after it. Don't let somebody tell you that you can't. And if they do, use it as fuel.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Just to piggyback off of it, networking is big. A lot of the times it's not what you know, it's who you know. And once you get in there, they will teach you what they want you to know. Mm-hmm. So networking and, it's a broad field, like huge field. Do your research and figure out what you want to do in tech and how that will translate to any other field that you possibly want to get in or you came from. So like I said, I came from education, so I wasn't a developer. I'm not a coder. But my soft skills are allowing me to lead a team of developers and QA testers and being able to talk to those business partners. So just find what in the field you want to do and how your skills now will help you get there. And just go for it. Don't let anybody tell you no, and research.
That's awesome. Awesome advice. I don't know if we want to go down this rabbit hole, but when you're interviewing, because both of you have higher positions and you are going to sit in that seat. So when people are coming to interview for these positions, can you just give like the top 3 things you're looking for?
Okay, number 1, you need to be able to back up everything that you have on your resume. Mm-hmm. If you say that I, have 3 years of Java and you can't tell me what a public or private, variable is, that's the end of the conversation, right? Like, come on. So basically make sure that you can back up, your resume. The other thing that I'm looking for is good communication skills. You have to be able to come in and talk to other people. You have to be able to understand. You have to be able to, write. That's, everything's email and everything else, right? So communication skills are huge. So, don't skirt past the English class. Make sure that that's important. And then I would say that the third thing is I want people that are passionate. I want people that want to do what this job is, that are curious about the tech, that will stay up to date on the newest and greatest and, all the techniques and design patterns and everything else. So definitely looking for passion as well. So those are my top three.
Okay. Morgan?
One of my main things that I look for is drive. You're not going to be here forever. What do you see yourself being or going to in the future? Where are your goals in the next 5 years? Because in 5 years, I don't want you on my scrum team. I don't want you on my scrum team in 5 years. I want you to do something else. So I definitely look for that. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? The communication is a good thing. I'm really big on soft skills. You can, and when I'm with developers a lot, it's a lot of them, they can tell you inside, out, upside, and down about some code, but they can't talk to you. So that is something that I always look for. You can be as smart as a whip, but you have to learn how to talk to people. And not only just, you have to tactfully talk to people too.
Talk to
and not shoot yourself in the foot. So, because when you shoot yourself in the foot, you shoot me in the foot.
Right.
So I definitely look for that. And like you said, backing up your resume, I see a lot of memes on there on the internet about, when I interviewed versus when I get the job. You have to back it up. You can only fake it till you make it, but so much. And it's going to come to a time where, we'll figure it out.
Right.
Right.
Figure it out, but hopefully we figure it out sooner than later. But just back up what you know in your resume and don't shortchange yourself. Confidence is a big thing, because I want somebody who is going to be confident in their decisions.
Right. That's awesome. Thank you so very much for that. Thank you so much. And thank you for being our very first participants on our, podcast. We're super excited about this. Thank you.
So my name is Alesheia.
And I am Jillian.
And you are watching, technically speaking, with DTL here at Shaw University. And we have two awesome guests on our first inaugural
very
podcast. So
we just want to first say thank you, ladies, so much for being here. This is part 1 of our Women's History Month series. We are showcasing different women and African-American women in different fields that are basically male dominated. So if you wonderful ladies don't mind introducing yourself and telling us what it is you do. And whoever wants to go first, Morgan.
Okay, I'll go first. My name is Morgan Moore. I am a product owner for Cetene Corporation.
Hi, I am Tramaine Darby, and I am an engineering manager at RedHat, and I manage a software engineering team.
Awesome.